They may say that you have changed, and I say, thank goodness. The other version was silently killing me. And I know that because my body sounded the alarm. My name is Jade Reese, and I'm the founder of the Adventure Alchemist, which is a travel and lifestyle design business for the LGBT community and our allies. In 2022, the alarm sounded really loud. I went to the doctor and had a routine shoulder x-ray, and the doctor called me, and we know it's never good when the doctor calls you personally and said, my shoulder is okay. However, there's a mass in my lung. I got to tell you, that kind of set me down a little bit, and I was like, holy smokes. It took me a little bit of time to get my footing, and it took 4 months of tests and biopsies and the emotional journey of going through finding out that you have a mass in your lung and you don't know what it is. So during that time, I really started looking at my life, and I started asking myself some really hard questions. And asking the hard questions was the catalyst that really set my life in the trajectory that it's going now. So I started asking myself, how was I living? What did I want my relationships to look like? And more importantly, what am I waiting for? And I'm like, what am I waiting for? I didn't have a clear answer for that. I said, someday I'm going to go gorilla trekking. Been wanting to do that since I was 15. Someday I'm going to build this big empire. All of the somedays that we end up saying in our head. And as I sat there and I'm pondering this, I realized those somedays were no longer someday, but they were regrets. I realized in that moment, because I still didn't know, that they may never happen. That was a heavy thing to look at. And so the next step that I did is I started looking at my relationships, and I go into a relationship inventory, because I've had friends that I've been through a long time. Some of those I call them habit relationships because they're unhealthy. We're friends because it's a habit. We've known each other for many years. When I looked at all of my healthy relationships versus my unhealthy relationships, I realized that all of my unhealthy relationships were because I didn't have healthy boundaries. You can't have a healthy relationship without healthy boundaries. And once I started looking at that and realized what was missing, then everything started to change. It started to shift. So the shifts that I made is I healed, I changed, and I reclaimed. And those are power words. I healed my body. I healed my heart. I changed how I travel. I changed how I live. I reclaimed my time. And more importantly, I reclaimed who I am and started to build the kind of life that I wanted to live. And that it made me start looking at where I ignored my body, because my body will tell me the truth before my brain catches up with it. And that was a really tough thing for me to reconcile. So I started to trust my body's reactions as non-negotiable feedback. It's that feeling of you're hurting, or you feel like you got punched in the gut, or you walk into a meeting and you immediately shrink. That is called your woman's intuition, and we need to listen to it because it will not lie. There's a lot of things in this world that will lie to you, but your intuition will not lie. We just have to listen to it. When you start feeling those things, it's a clear signal that a boundary has either been violated or one is desperately needed. I believe that the mass in my lung was created through stress that I carry in my body because of unhealthy boundaries, the consequences of those unhealthy boundaries. The thing that changed the trajectory of my life the most was learning how to set healthy boundaries. I discovered that once I understood them, it gives me the ground to actually hold them, because you can't hold what you can't see. So to me, it takes self-awareness, and you have to understand, what do you need to feel safe in a relationship? What do you need to feel valued, seen? What makes me feel drained? And where do I tend to overextend myself, and why? Self-awareness is the key. Oftentimes, I think people are not clear on what a boundary is. They see it as actually creating a wall between them and the other person. And I used to think that too, but as I've grown, I realized that a boundary is actually a bridge between me and my self-respect. And that bridge, I get to, what is that, Billy Goat Gruff thing from childhood? Boy, I hadn't thought of that in a long time. Like Billy Goat Gruff, I get to decide who walks across my bridge. And I was letting some trolls across my bridge. So I wasn't building walls, I was building a bridge. And it wasn't designed to punish anyone. It was about self-love and protecting my energy, protecting my self-respect, And more importantly, it is protecting my peace of mind. And for me, that is a non-negotiable. If something is upsetting my apple cart, my apples start going rolling down the hill, I'm out. There are different kinds of boundaries. There's negotiable boundaries, and then there's non-negotiable. The non-negotiable are the things we just talked about. Anything that makes you devalue your self-worth or your self-respect, those are just out. But then there are negotiables, things in friendships that you and I have common courtesy, self-respect, different things along those lines. I've figured out an easy rule. This is actually my rule of life right here. People say, really can't be that simple, but if you get something where you know your boundaries and why, this works 100% of the time. So here it is. Easy rule is, if it feels good, do more of it. If it feels bad, stop. I know people say it can't be that simple, but trust me, I've been doing that for about 7 years, and it never steers me wrong because it always guides me back to my woman's intuition, which will tell me, along with my body, is this a safe place for me to be? So remember, if it feels good, do more of it. If it feels bad, stop. There you go. I used to say to people, oh, you crossed my boundary. But later I realized I wasn't clear about what the boundary was, or I had not communicated it correctly, or probably 80% of the time I was like, what the hell just happened? I realized that most of the time when I was saying what the hell just happened was in two particular instances. One is when I'm dating, because you want to put your best foot forward and say, oh my gosh, I want you to like me. I'm all that in a bag of chips. Sometimes I let those boundaries down and I soften them so they'll like me. But the problem with that is when you start a relationship with soft boundaries, you're teaching that person how to treat you. And so when you get into the relationship and you're a year or 2 years down the road, and suddenly you're doing all the cooking and cleaning and mowing the yard and taking care of the bills and all of that stuff, and then you get mad, they're confused. Why are you mad? This is the way we've always done it. That's one of the scenarios where I would overextend because I wanted them to like me. This one has been a more recent boundary, and it wasn't always like this, but when I'm traveling, I meet a lot of people. I believe that mostly people are good, and therefore that's what I attract when I'm traveling. And you're out and you're meeting people, and they're like, oh, come on, let's go do this, or whatever. People are being friendly, and especially when it's international travel, I don't want to be considered as a typical American, but I've learned to follow my instincts, especially going to other countries. I did a solo trip to Uganda and Rwanda, and I didn't have any issues there. I had a great company, but there were a few times when my little spidey senses went off. In Ethiopia, that had a little meltdown. A lot of people were in my personal space a little more, so realized that letting those boundaries get soft was a trauma response, and it was a result of me subconsciously thinking, if I will do enough for you, then you're going to like me. As most of us know, that's not always the case. However, we have such a strong desire to be seen and liked that it makes us ignore red flags when our body is otherwise telling us danger, Will Robinson. I'm going to transition to the hard truths. To get the life that you want, sometimes requires you go through the hard stuff and you make the hard decisions. The first thing I had to really learn is that people will tell you who they are, and it's your job to believe them. I want you to understand that people will tell you who they are, and it is your job to believe them. They reveal themselves in patterns, not promises. There's a reason people say actions speak louder than words, rather than words speak louder than action. If you're in a relationship with someone long enough, you will realize that if they wanted to spend time with you, they would. If they wanted to go on vacation with you, then they would. And if they wanted to put you as a priority in their life, they would. So if someone is telling you that your needs are inconvenient, then you need to believe them. Take your self-respect and go home. For me, this was a really hard one. The hardest pill for me to swallow was the fact that everybody doesn't care as much as I do. And that hurt my heart. I realized that there is no amount of loyalty or empathy on my part that is going to change that equation. You will waste hours or days or maybe even years trying to explain it or say it in a different way in hopes that they are going to understand, and they won't. People do not change through clarity. They change through choice. And if someone has already decided that your comfort is optional, your hurt is negotiable, and your needs are inconvenient, believe them. They are not confused. They are consistent. For me, I thought I was being kind and patient and emotionally generous, and what I was calling love was actually a trauma response. It felt more comfortable to my system, even if it was unhealthy. So I would rationalize their behavior and say, oh, they're going through something. They can't do this. They didn't call back. They didn't, whatever the case, because they're going through something. And I tell you, I made a career kind of giving people the benefit of the doubt, and it made me emotionally bankrupt. So stop interpreting low effort as they're complex. It's not. It's just low effort. And when you start calling it what it is and stop accepting breadcrumbs and trying to make a cake out of it, your life is going to change. Now, I don't accept crumbs. If you're coming to my table, you better bring the whole damn cake. It's been a big change, but the breadcrumbing used to kill me because it leads me into one more chance and one more chance. And, oh, they didn't mean it. And all of those boundary crossing things until one day you have a mess in your lung and you're like, oh, snap. What am I going to do with this? I believe that there are two types of pain in this world. There is pain that hurts, and then there is pain that alters. My experience is that having healthy boundaries will determine which kind of pain is going to come into your life. That was a very hard one because the cost of no boundaries is extremely. You stay in survival mode and you may cover it up as success. There's the physical toll. There's the anxiety, exhaustion, depression, weight gain. There's so many different things. You lose your power. Think about two kids playing with a toy. They're going back and forth, and at some point, one of those kids is going to have the toy. So not only are they getting the toy, they're also gaining control in that relationship. Think about your cousins and all the people you used to fight with as kids, and think about how you felt when you lost the toy. And most of the time, that dynamic stays with you through adulthood. But what I've also learned is that there is also power in letting go of the toy, letting go of the relationship, making a conscious decision to choose your peace. And here's the hard part, even if it breaks both of your hearts. Make a conscious decision to choose your peace, even if it breaks both of your hearts. Then walk away and silently take your power back. I'm going to give you 3 actions that you can do to take your power back. People think that letting go is a sign of failure, but letting go takes courage. It takes the courage to admit that you have needs. It takes the courage to admit that you are tired. And it takes the courage to turn the mirror inward, become who you really are. Number 2 is reclaim your peace. Most of us have been spending years denying this truth, that your peace does not come from what's outside of you. It comes from no longer trying to control what never belonged to you in the first. I'm going to give you an exercise. I call it my should list. Make a list of everything that you feel like you should be doing. And this is all the way down to brushing your teeth. And your should list shows you where you began and where others end. And so what you need to do is then cross off everything that is not yours, even if the kids are. Then start prioritizing and honoring what is yours. And then the third thing is you have to accept the fallout. You have to be willing to be the bad guy in somebody else's story to protect your peace. When you start setting boundaries, people may call you cold or distant or say that they don't like this version of you, and that is okay, because it just means that version of you that worked for them and not for you is no longer available. And we're taught that we have to stay there and work things out even when it's hard. But unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional tolerance. So stop confusing the two. There is no prize for staying in a bad relationship that demeans you. People are going to fall out of your life, and that's called natural evolution. There are side effects to healthy boundaries. The number one that I feel is I can breathe again. I reclaim my power. I stopped missing the chaos. I began to trust myself. And when I started trusting myself, then I started designing a life that supported that, and I started to thrive. When you're doing this work, you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing this for the generations after you. I see this as being that person who, when there's a big fire, and sometimes you watch just a big shit show, and you're like, oh my gosh, something's got to give here. So you have to figure out, what is that line that needs to stop, not just for you, but the generations. If you've got kids, you have to pay attention to that. I have nieces and nephews, but you look at that fire line, and they take this place that is on fire, and they drop, and it's just a little line, but it burns away all of the things that are no longer serving, and it protects those future generations. It protects you. It protects everything within the line of that fire circle. And that is why we do the work that we do, because it's not just us, it is the world. We are also connected, that when we heal ourselves, we're healing generations, and we're actually healing the world one boundary at a time. The greatest act of love that I ever gave myself was a boundary. And I'm going to give you one more exercise. I call this my ninja trick. When somebody is saying something to me that is rude or disrespectful or just not supportive at all, I look at them and I go, "Oh, right," and then stops them in their track, because there's nothing you can say. So practice that a little bit. Make sure you get the inflection right. "Oh, right." So the next time somebody calls you the other B word, go, "Oh, right." I do want to invite everyone to join the Elite Travel Mastery community. The techniques that you'll learn in there will help you to do some of the stuff I did. I traveled to Africa, Uganda for first class, $450 round trip. I've traveled 45 days this year, and I've paid zero in lodging. So there's a lot of tips and tricks that I will show you. There's a quick start guide to Elite Travel Mastery.